Hello TACACS.net users. My name is Mike and I'm going to walk you through our debug log and show you a few tips and tricks to making troubleshooting a breeze. For this video, I'm going to use TACACS.net Advanced, which includes enhanced logging. Enhanced logging was designed based on feedback from enterprise customers. It is a significant update to logging over the free version and includes more flexibility, structured logging, TCP transport, ISO timestamps, and a better use of syslog severities. More information can be found in the enhanced logging configuration page. The first thing we're going to do is access the logs folder from the TACACS.net start menu icon. Now, when you open the file in a simple text editor like Notepad, the content can be difficult to read and parse through. So, it's better to open the file in a spreadsheet application like Excel or Google Docs. I'll open Excel in a blank workbook and from here go to File, Open, and navigate to the Logs folder, which is in the C drive Program Data TACACS.net directory. And Program Data is a hidden folder by default, so you'll need to change your view settings to show items if you haven't done so already. Because the debug log uses a .log file extension, it won't come up automatically in Explorer. So you have to change the selected view viewer to show all files. Then you just open the file you want to review. When you do that, Excel will open a text import wizard. You want to make sure the delimited radio button is selected and click Next. Then under Delimiters, select Comma and Next. Then on this page, you can choose the column data format, which we leave on general, and you can choose to leave specific columns out of the import, which can come in handy, especially if you already know what you're looking for. For this demonstration, however, we'll leave all of the columns intact. Click Finish, and the log will be split into columns when it loads. From here, you can tweak the layout to what best suits your style. But I freeze the top row and first column. Then I widen the first column to be able to view the entire timestamp. To do that, click cell B2. Select the View tab and click the Freeze Panes icon. Now, when we scroll down to the right, the column headings and timestamps are in full view. The debug log divides the output into different columns. Some convey more relevant information than others, so we won't be reviewing all of them, but for reference, the categories are timestamps, severity, connection ID, session ID, NAS IP, NAS hostname, NAS port, remote address, remote port, user, and message. We'll start with timestamp column, which contains this timestamp of the log entries. Each timestamp will correspond to an activity the server engages in. There are more than just timestamps that can be useful with troubleshooting in the timestamp column, however. This column also contains the global server configuration and the configuration of the individual files. The timestamp column will also display the authentication and authorization status of each attempt. That information will not have a timestamp, but it denotes the beginning of an authentication or authorization action. The last two columns are also typically the most valuable when troubleshooting. The username of the user making the connection request and the message from the TACACS.net server. Most commonly, you'll be digging through this log because someone is being denied access to a network device. Being able to search specifically for that user helps narrow down the area of the log you need to review. Finally, and most importantly, is the information or message the TACACS.net server is communicating to you. Here's where you'll find specific details about the activity. Another thing Excel is great for is quickly highlighting important information so you can visually narrow down your search. The easiest way to do that is by using the Find and Replace feature. You can do that by opening the Replace dialog box, entering the search term in the Find box as well as the Replace With box, and then change the formatting to replace with cells to some easily identifiable color like bright yellow. In addition to the username, it is also helpful to search for and highlight the key terms passed and failed. I will do that by highlighting the word passed in green and the word failed in red. Obviously, highlighting the word passed will show successful connections, and highlighting the word failed will visualize the unsuccessful attempts. Okay, so now that we have our test users activity highlighted, let's take a look at an example of a typical message from an authenticated user. Starting from the top of the authentication, we see the server checking the configuration and opening a new connection. You will first see the status of the client permissions and a connection open message for each connection request made by a user. After that, over the timestamp column, you'll see the request type and other characteristics as the server and client negotiate the connection. This particular connection is an authentication request. We can see here that the server is putting the user through the authentication process. When an authentication attempt occurs, the TACACS.NET server will start from the top of the user groups list configured in the authentication file and work its way down until it finds a match. And you can see this is where the server is checking our user against the first group called network engineering, and we receive an authentication passed message. Scrolling down a bit more, you can see the output and the log. The server is closing the connection, and there we have one complete authentication connection with detail and the debug log. Now I want to check an authorization request, and again we see the server negotiate the connection with the client. This time the server also goes from top to bottom checking authorization profiles. However, it does not output details of authorization profiles it does not belong to. It's only concerned with authorization profile the user or client group belongs to. In this case of conflicting groups, either user or client, the first authorization profile will be applied. Now, let's take a look at what the debug says when you're trying to log in with a user's Active Directory credentials. Again, we see the same process as before with the TACACS.NET local user because the local user group is listed first. So, when the server does not find the user in that group, it moves on to the next, which is our Active Directory group. Now, depending on your specific configuration, you may see slightly different messages in the log. But the gist of what's happening here is that the server is binding with the Active Directory server. After you see that, it's going through the calls to the server looking for a user at the end. We get a message that authentication passed. Then on the other side of the equation, we have a failed authentication attempt using the wrong password for our Active Directory user. Something important to note here is that when authenticating with Active Directory users, the debug log will show you what the TACACS.NET server is saying and what the Active Directory is telling us. The messages will basically say the same thing, but they won't always be identical, so you should be aware of that. The way you can tell is the message will begin with AD:. If it's from Active Directory and if it's from TACACS.NET, it will just say authentication message. Okay, so that's a basic rundown of how to navigate and interpret the TACACS.NET debug log. I hope you found this lesson useful, and remember, TACACS.NET is the fastest, simplest, most versatile TACACS Plus server on the market. Until next time, thanks for watching.